Hello everyone, this is Matt Johnson at SRS Fleet, and here we're going to look at how to build a tier 3 ship. Now, of course, tier 3 ship, tier 4 ship, tier 6 doesn't really matter. They're just that the higher the tier you have, there's more options you can use on them. The reason we're looking at a tier 3 ship today is that our fleet is running an event over the next 7 days, and all our events will be gauged on the tier of ship that you use in them. The lower the tier, the higher marks you get from the event. Obviously it's more difficult the lower the tiers. You're not going to get as much damage, healing, threat and so on, so you get a big boost, 100% boost in fact, of the marks if you're at a tier 1 ship on our events. But for anybody that's having nothing to do with that, this general review on how to build a tier 3 ship can be used on any ship, certainly any cruiser. A lot of the things will be valid on any ship at all, and a tier 6 ship will basically just take that a bit further. So I've just got this today. I wouldn't have bothered, but I really love the look. This is the new skin that they've made for the Excelsior class. This is a tier 3 version. There's a tier 6 version, the Resolute, but you can put this skin on it as well, and they've done a fantastic job. This is material type 8. I've called it USS Tuesday, and anybody that has watched Generations will know why it's called USS Tuesday. So to business, what you're going to stick on your tier 3 ship to get the most out of it. So I've gone ahead and populated the ship with gear off my tier 6 ship. Obviously if you've actually just started the game and you found yourself with a tier 3 ship, then you won't have access to any of this equipment, but you will have access to similar equipment but at a much lower mark, mark 6 or whatever it is for that level. Let's just close this inventory out of the way. Okay, so one of the other bonuses that we're doing this week is a bonus marks for maximum 1 hit. That means the maximum damage recorded, the single biggest hit that you get in an event, and that also affects what I'm putting on this ship, but I'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. So this is a cruiser. Obviously it's a heavy cruiser, as the actual description. It's Excelsior class heavy cruiser, and cruisers are defined generally by them having a lot of engineering slots, and if it's a tier 6 ship it'll have a commander engineer, but this has got a lieutenant commander engineering, and it's also got a lieutenant engineer, so I've got plenty of engineering I can use. It's a bit low on tack and it's a bit low on science, but hey, it's a tier 6 ship, tier 3 ship, so it doesn't really matter. One of the things that cruisers are really good at is broadsiding, beams, fire at will, and that's the way that I've set this ship up. So what I've got on here is a phaser beam and a Terran Task Force disruptor beam, a sensor linked omnidirectional phaser beam, the trilithium enhanced phaser beam. It's from one of the missions, one of the newer missions. I can't remember off the top of my head which one. And a Dyson proton weapon. At the front I'm using a trilithium tricobalt torpedo for the big hits, in conjunction with high yield 1, which actually hits much harder than you might think. I'm expecting to get some reasonable hits. It's not going to be hundreds of thousands, but I should easily be able to get 80, 100,000 maybe off that. So let's have a look at the weapons. Phaser's the obvious choice for Federation ships, but And again, if you're a new player, you won't have access to this because it requires you to have filled up the reputation system. the Terran Task Force reputation system. But if you're not a new player and you've filled this up, then you should have this weapon on any ship if it's firing beams, and there's also a cannon version of it. The beauty of this weapon is that as the damage dealt, the damage that you deal is increases as the target's hull decreases up to 200% of damage. So if the target's hull is down to 25%, you're going to do double the damage that you would do if it was at 100%. So it's the same for the cannons. It's a no-brainer. You should always have this one on here. Then you're going to get people saying, oh well, this is a disruptor and you're using phasers. Well, that's no problem at all. What you do for your tactical consoles, you use beams rather than phaser or disruptors. Use beams. That means that they give the same critical chance, slightly less slightly less damage boost, about 3-4% damage boost less, but means you can put any energy type on you like. So yes, rainbow builds are fine providing you're using beams. Now if I was using cannons, then that would say cannon locators and not beams. If you're absolutely going to be stuck on one weapon energy type, then you would obviously choose the correct locator for it. So if I was going to go full disruptors, that would allow me to keep the Terran Task Force disruptor but also have slightly more damage. But this is category 1 damage. It's not really very much. Category 1 is calculated as a percentage of the damage from the base of the weapon. Category 2 is calculated after all other buffs are added. So a 5% category 2 is more than a 10% category 1. So the damage difference here is category 1. It's not too much to worry about, but it does allow you a lot of flexibility in your weapons. So that's going to be boosting my Terran disruptor, my phasers, and my proton beam as well. It'll also boost that. Now I was going to have the proton beam on in conjunction with the gravimetric torpedo, and that's possible. I may well do that. It does give me quite a nice boost in my crit chance, which at the moment is 16.4%. If I do change that to the gravimetric torpedo, you'll see that's gone up to 19.4%. So it's a nice boost to your crit chance, but it doesn't hit as hard as the trike. Nothing hits as hard as trikes. Biomolecular is probably a very good choice because it moves fast and it's non-targetable by the NPCs or by other players, whereas a tricobalt can be targetable. So we'll see how it goes during the course of the week. I may well switch back, and in the meantime, if I'm not going to use the gravimetric torp, I'll probably switch this out for something different. Maybe I could put the heavy biomolecular torp on there. Okay, and if I use that in conjunction with the counter command multi-conduit energy relay, it'll give me set 2 on here. Let's just have a quick look. Details, which gives me plus 7.5% bonus phaser and disruptor energy weapon damage. Now remember what I said about category damage? The important thing here is the word bonus. Bonus means category 2. If you see the word bonus, then it's something you really want to get. And 7.5% category 2 damage, that means 7.5% on top of every other buff that you've got going. So if you've got attack pattern alpha on, you've got tactical fleet, if you've got emergency powered weapons, and on top of all that you get another 7.5%. That's worth having. So I'll keep it like that unless I decide that the gravimetric torp is the one I want to go for. But I probably won't, because it moves quite slowly. If ever you've been on a team with somebody using concentrate firepower, or if you've used concentrate firepower, you'll find that you get a high yield torp of whatever torp you've got on there, and the gravimetric one pops out, it takes its sweet time to get to the target. So that's the bad thing about it. It does hit hard when it hits, but it takes forever, even longer than the trike. Let's have a look at the other stuff I've got on here. I've got I haven't tried the Gamma Shield yet, but it's going to have to be really good to be better than the Iconian Resilient Shield. One of the great things about this shield is it's constantly cleansing itself. If ever you've got this shield on and you go into a micro nebula, that's the one where you get static over the screen and your map disappears, you'll see it doing the little ring animation all the time. It's trying to cleanse that debuff that's been put on you by the map. Of course it can't do it, but it tries. But it illustrates nicely what a good shield it is and how often it will cleanse debuffs off you. So the 3-piece Iconian is very nice. It's a good all-round set. It will protect you, and I would highly recommend it. The 4-piece gives you the subatomic pulse thing, which is forever missing off your tray, and is good, but every 2 minutes. I don't like 2-minute clickies. 2 minutes is a long time to wait. So I prefer not to go with the 4-piece. I go with the 3-piece Iconian, and I use the deflector from the Colony, which has a very nice 4% crit chance based on your hull percentage. So providing your hull is at 100%, you get 4% more crit chance. So that's really nice. You just get that from your Colony world. I think that tier 2 of the Colony world doesn't have to be very high, but you could always ask SRS for an invite, and we'll bring you over to ours, which is tier 4 or tier 5 or something like that. Now on a small ship like this, I mean small as in tier, low tier I should say, one of the problems is going to be taking damage. You have only got a relatively small hull, 44,000 hull. The NPCs can hit you 40-50,000 with a top spread very, very easily and quite often. So I need to negate that 2 ways. One, by raising my hull up a little bit, which is possible. The main way by increasing my resistances. So static resistance here around the 50 to 55%. Don't worry about radiation, there's not much of that in the game. Physical resist, again, that tends to be temporal damage, not much of that in the game. So these are the ones you're looking at. Typical kinetic resist is a little bit low on this, but I think it'll be okay. One thing you can do to increase your hull is to use the Jevonite hardpoints, which you can craft yourself once you've done the proper DOff missions, or like me, if you're lazy, just buy them off the exchange. If I activate one of those, that will give me a 900 seconds or 15 minutes boost to my hull. So it's taken me up by 8,000. Not much, but 8,000 can be the difference between life and death. If you have got a bigger ship, like on my Universe class, those will take me from 138,000 to about 158,000, so about 20k on my hull. Just buy a stack of those, keep them in your tray. You don't need them on the device slots anymore, they just keep them in your inventory. Put them on your tray and then use them. If you die, you don't have to use another one, it remains active until it's run out of time, which is a nice change by Cryptic. So then, another way is to get your resistance up. This is a great console, Bounty Hunter's Friend. Get it from the Lobby store, 200 Lobby, and it gives you plus 39.4 energy damage resistance, 29.5 Starship shield restoration, that's an improvement to shield healing, and importantly minus 10% weapon power cost. So whatever your weapons are costing, take 10% off, and that's what it saves you. Weapon power, the importance of weapon power cannot be underestimated. The higher power, basically the more damage you're going to do. and you need to refresh that power as fast as possible after it's fired. That's where your power transfer rate comes in. So anything above 200 is good, 300 is great, above 300 probably not really going to make that much difference. So on this ship I've just bought it, and it comes with the power settings as normal, which is kind of equal. So what I will do here is hit this one to take it up to maximum power, unlock it, and then I'll bring my auxiliary right up. Okay, and we'll see why that is in a few minutes. If we change this back to the readouts, I can see that I'm about 118, 100. So 118 is a bit low. I like to see 125, but I'm missing quite a few consoles that I would normally use for boosting power. So I guess you have got to live with some things when you're on a tier 3 ship. Now, using the reinforced armament set, which I will check in a moment to see where that actually comes from. 3 pieces of that gives you quite a nice resistance buff. So set 3 plus 20 all damage and plus 20 Starship hull capacity. That's why this hull's a little bit higher than you might have expected. Set 2 is nice as well. Fire and cycle haste for energy weapons and a bit more flight speed. So I'm getting my big hit in torp. I'm getting quite a nice omnidirectional phaser beam, which means it fires 360-degree arc. And I'm also getting this console, which gives me the extra 70% power transfer rate, which you see in there. Some more hull restoration and yet more hull capacity. So if I was to take that set off, hull capacity would drop right down. So that's a nice set to use on a low tier ship. I actually use it on my J as well, a lot of the time. Right, now I'll come to another couple of consoles that you may not be able to get if you are just starting out in the game. The single best console in the game currently, and I think most people would agree with this, is this one. It's a universal console, dynamic power redistributor module, and it's available on the tier 6 Atlas prototype dreadnought. So you're going to have to buy a tier 6 ship to get that console, unless you're on the KDF side or the Romulan side. Then you can get it in a box for about 8 million EC. Otherwise, on the Fed side, you have to buy the ship, which is around about 300 million. But it's a good ship actually. It's a really good ship. So you're getting a very good ship, but you're also getting the best console in the game. Why is it so good? Well, first of all, it gives you a little bit more damage resistance, as you can see there, and a little bit more directed energy damage. That means energy damage from cannons or beams. But it's only Cat 1. If it said bonus, then it would be Cat 2. It says it's just Cat 1. But it's still nice to have. But that's not why I got it on here. Look at what it does when you actually hit the clicky, which is this one here. Plus 40% bonus damage. Remember what I said about bonus? That's category 2. So providing your hull's above 80%, you'll get 40% damage bonus. That's 40% on top of every other buff you've got active, which is a huge amount of extra damage. Yeah, and that's for 20 seconds. Now, the other good thing that it does, if you're below 80% damage, and a lot of people use this as a oh crap button. You know, you're right down there, you're going to blow up. Hit this button, hit this clicky here, and it will restore your hull very quickly indeed. It will take you straight back up to 100%, and as you can see on the tooltip there, gives you plus 100 bonus damage resistance rating. So again, bonus can be used not just for damage but also for healing. Take my hand off the mouse, hang on, there we go. Also for healing. So that means that you're going to get plus 100 on top of every other heal buff that you've got going. So it's a category 2 damage resistance buff, plus 500% hull regen. So your hull will regenerate very, very quickly indeed. So it's a real get out of jail free card, as I like to say. Once you're above 80%, it then starts to give you the bonus damage. So it does both, and for 20 seconds with a 2-minute cooldown. You can lower that cooldown if you get the other pieces of the set, but obviously on a ship this size I can't possibly squeeze all those consoles on. But to be honest, not worth it that much on the tier 6 ships. It's worth using when I use this is if I know I'm on top of the situation and want to boost my DPS and I'm not likely to get killed, then I'll use it then. If I'm in a very difficult SRS mission, one of our Foundry missions, then I won't use it at all until I need it. And when I need it, will be like hit RSP, hit that, I'm straight back with full shields and full hull, and I can decide then whether or not to GTFO or keep on firing and try and kill them before they kill me. So I think probably on this ship I'll be using it as a get out of jail free card. But it is worth 300 million EC. Not only do you get a good ship with it, it's the best console in the game, bar none. Another nice console is the reiterative structural capacitor, and this gives you some nice hull restoration and yet more hull capacity. But when you actually use the clicky, which is this one here, what it does is it heals not only yourself but all the other targets around you within 4 kilometers for 25% of the damage that you take in the previous second. So a minimum of 500 hit points per second. So if I was to use it now, if I've got some people around me, yeah, if I use it now, you'll see it. Let's zoom out a little bit. It's now healing all those ships. Of course they're not damaged, so it doesn't matter. It's a nice effect. Looks pretty cool. It gives everybody a good strong heal. Where'd you get it from? You get it from the weekend events. So you need to run the weekend events. If you don't have the weekend events store, where is it now? I forget. Is it in here? Or no, I think it's in reputation, events, store, weekend events. Every so often they do a weekend event with the Sompek Arena, which is where you get the fantastic kit module, the Sompek Lightning, which is this one. Absolutely brilliant, very powerful. But you can also get this reiterative structural capacitor, a nice prolonged engagement phaser array, which is great on really big targets with big hulls. Not tried that one. Interesting. I shall come back to that one. But anyway, if you don't have this one, then you need to wait for the next weekend event. If you do have it, and it's a very good console to use, and you'll find it's in regular use in most of our MRP events. Then we've got back to our locator, as I said earlier, and the counter command multi-conduit energy relay is from the reputation system, counter command reputation. So you need to really get that. You need to get these filled as soon as you can. There's some pretty cool consoles and weapons on all of these. Okay, so thinking back that this is a tier 3 ship, 270 power transfer rate, 52,000 hull, 10,500 shields, 45 to 55% resist, 14.5% crit chance, 86% crit severity. Not too bad. Turn rate is 12.8. Not bad for a cruiser. She turns just fine. Now you'll notice though that all my weapons point forward. 2 omnis on the back, the turret, two beams here obviously will hit forward when I'm facing the target, and the torp. So I don't have to worry about broadsiding. I can keep my torp on the target, which is what I want this week. If you want to go for broadsiding, then you would replace these with normal beams, and normal beams will do more damage than omnis. But in the heat of battle, when you don't know, you're running away or whatever, you could still fire at these, whether they're in front of you or behind you, wherever they are, doesn't matter, they'll hit the target. So let's go and have a look at what I'm using as skills on this somewhat limited layout compared to what I'm used to. Just let me get a drink of coffee here. Now, I mentioned earlier that we're doing a max one hit week, so I'm going to be using high yield 1. I could use high yield 2 for a little bit more punch, but it's not going to fire that often, and majority of my damage is going to be from the beams, so I want to stick with fire at will 2. I could swap it around, and I may do that to see what difference it makes, but fire at will 2 is a big, and your beams are firing all the time. Torp's not firing very often. I'm using emergency powder weapons 3, which is a category 2 buff to your weapons, so you should always be using emergency powder weapons 3 if you can get it on. Ox to Sif, very nice resist boost and repair of your ship. Emergency powder shields. Now these two do cancel each other out. So what I will do is I will put emergency powder shields somewhere where I'm not likely to need it. Let's get rid of these thumbs. What I mean by that is, I should have changed that to engineering team. Okay. Yeah, what I mean by that is where I don't have it on my rotation. Let's put these on and I'll explain that better. So I'm doing a piss poor job of explaining that bit. Okay. Yeah, so emergency powder shields, emergency powder weapons. I want emergency powder weapons to activate all the time. Unless I'm in trouble, then I'll hit emergency powder shields. So this will activate all the time because I have a keybind set up, and when I press the keybind it will activate all these things. I'm not doing anything at the moment, doing it all for me. And you see it's got a cooldown on emergency powder shields even though I haven't activated it, but I can actually have, there we go, now I can have emergency powder shields, and I'm still waiting for emergency powder weapons to come back, so I can get both up basically. RSP is going to be essential, reverse shield polarity. Basically when you're going down, RSP will refill your shields and keep you alive, give you a chance to get out of the dangerous situation you're in. Absolutely essential. Now with the RSP there is a DOff. Let's go to DOff, and it's this one, fabrication engineer. Oh, I just took him off. I'm supposed to right click, not left click. Where did he go? Find him. Where's my fabrication engineer? Come on then, get on. Okay, right. What it does is it increases the duration of reverse shield polarity by 8 seconds, which means that it lasts 20 seconds instead of 12. Bit more time to get out of trouble. Engineering team, always useful to give you a bit of a hull boost. Also clears disables such as viral matrix or the EMP probe from Iconian ships. It'll clear a lot of those, so you don't just need to use it to help repair your hull. Hazard emitters, absolutely essential for clearing dots, damage over time. If you're fighting the Borg, you'll notice that they burn you with plasma weapons, and that plasma hangs around on your hull and continues to do damage, what we call ticks. It ticks away every second or every half second, whatever the tick frequency is. It'll damage your hull a little bit more. Hazard emitters completely clears your hull of any dangerous dots, which is why it looks like it's being cleaned when you use it. Subspace vortex is a powerful ability that will cause heavy kinetic damage to any targets within 3 kilometers of the center of the vortex. All science ships will be using this, but I find it quite useful on many ships. You can get quite a lot of DPS, and it's always in the top 3 or 4 of your DPS combat log. So that's all the stations full, and that's my proposed layout for this ship for the week. What else we've got to look at? Let's have a look at the traits that I'm using for space. We're not interested in ground. I want to stay alive. Ablative shell is a great trait. You can buy it off the exchange. About 8 or 9 million EC. After receiving 10,000 damage, what it does is it gives you a big boost to your hit points and a big boost to your damage resistance for a few seconds. It's got a nice effect. It looks like bits of armor coming off your ship every time it activates. Inspirational leader, 10% chance activating any bridge officer ability, grants +10 to all skills. And while we're talking about +10 to all skills, make sure you go tier 5 Starbase and buy the +10 to all skills. If I use these, I'm not going to use them at the moment, but I'll use them later on. They last 4 hours and gives you +10 to everything. I suppose I could use it now just to show you. So the hull, for example, is at 44. If I use the engineering one now, you should see that go up. There we go, 45. So it's not a huge amount, but all these little bits add up. I use all 3 at the same time, and then you can see that I've got the buffs here on my tray, +10 tactical, science and engineering skills. Inspirational leader does the same thing basically, but it's free of charge, which support the trait. This used to be like 400-500 million for this trait. Since the Infinity prize pack came out, it's now just, I don't know, 3 or 4 million. It's dead cheap. Everybody should be running that. Astrophysicist, exotic particle generator, that's going to help well, what's going to be actually for the gravimetric rift, but I think I might knock that one out and put something else in. Definitely what you want to look at getting is repair crews, stacking plus resol and regeneration in combat. So when you're in combat, you get stacks of repair crews, up to 5 stacks, will give you +5 all damage resistance times 5. So it's really nice boost and all repair rate. Give your all, basically dodge 20% of incoming damage for 3 seconds. This is an R&D trait. You need to get to level 15 in engineering, I think it is for that one. Biotech patch, 20% bonus hull healing. Remember that bonus word there again. Category 2 hull healing. Get it off the exchange. About 8-10 million. Here we've got particle manipulator again. This is again probably because I was going to use the gravimetric. I think what I'll do is I'll take those out now. Those two. Not likely to want to use those with the trike. What I will do is use Good Day to Die. Basically, it allows you to use your go down fighting all the time. And it'll give you the bonuses if you go down fighting is already at 50% hull. You won't get any more than that, but it's 50% all the time. And then I'm looking for beam barrage. Plus 2% all beam damage bonus for 30 seconds, stacking 3 times. Basically 6% bonus damage from my beams. And then more beam damage, another 7.5% bonus beam weapon damage from the superior beam training and superior projectile training. You get these from K13, providing you've got high enough in your fleets, in your fleet tiers in the K13 holding. It's a busy place, isn't it? All sorts of people doing all sorts of things here. Look. Right, let's have a look at the Starship traits. Emergency weapon cycle, excellent trait. Get it from the Orbiter battle cruiser. When you use emergency powered weapons, it gives you minus 50% weapon power cost and 20% fire and cycle haste for 30 seconds. That's excellent. Redirecting arrays. You know what, I've completely forgotten which ship that's from. You'll have to look it up. But basically, when you're using fire at will, receiving any damage grants plus 0.33 seconds duration fire at will. Doesn't sound much, but it stacks up, continues to stack to give you a maximum extra total duration of 15 seconds on top of what you've already got. Basically, it gives you more. As long as you're taking damage, you can get almost a continual fire at will. Then the Zol trait. I call it the Zol trait because you get it off the Zol ship. This is a really, really good get out of jail free card. So when you reduce below 5% hull, 50% incoming hull healing to self, plus 50% extra. Same for shield healing. And once you get down to 5% hull, i.e. you're just about dead, you become unkillable for 8 seconds. So that gives you 8 seconds to get the hell out of there, run off, away from combat, heal yourself up. If you don't, after 8 seconds you will die. And that's got a cooldown on it of 2 minutes, so you can't rely on that again for 2 minutes. So look out for the buff that will come up here telling you they've used it. It's a bit like the continuity from the temporal reputation. So you need to look out for that. Honored Dead. This is a great trait for a Fed because we can buy it in a box. It gives 20 stacks. After 20 stacks, sorry, it grants 10,000 temporary hit points, but it also gives plus 10 all damage resistance rating. It basically takes your resistances from, you saw I was on about 45 to 55. I would expect to be seeing about 65 to 70 with the Honored Dead on. And this one needs to be removed. I'm using this on a different ship, which is great because that gives me room for another trait. What shall I use? So many choices. Let's have a look. All hands on deck. Very nice. Recharge and science and captain abilities. Attack pattern Delta. Well, I can't fit Delta on, so no point in putting that. This isn't very good unless you're using gem sensors. Desperate repairs. That's a great one to put on a ship that's going to be dying a lot. Get it from the Guardian cruiser, and critically hit grants a desperation counter for 2 minutes. When you get 3 counters, 5,000 shield regen, 25,000 hit points. So that's basically 50% of my hull. So I think that's probably a good one to put on there. Space rep. Now remember I said I set my auxiliary high down here. The reason for that is that I'm using auxiliary power configuration, offense and defense. Okay. And what you got to know is that these are actually bonus damage and bonus resistance. So again, category 2, worth using from the new Kara reputation. I'm also using advanced hull, which is a fantastic one to use because plus 10 bonus all damage resistance rating. There's that word again. Advanced targeted systems give me a nice boost to my crit severity and it'll be precision, a good 4%. If I took that off and took off that deflector, I'd be down at a measly 6% or whatever it is. So they're very useful. Active rep, obviously again if you're a new player you're not going to have any of this stuff, but it won't really matter because you'll be playing on normal difficulty and you'll be playing against quite easy targets. I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you're a tier 6 player, if you're an endgame player, if you're a vet, whatever, then you should have all these because you'll have done all reputations. Biomolecular shield bubble is brilliant. It's a big heal to everybody who flies into it. The anti-time singularity is fantastic for causing a lot of damage. Cast it on a target that's in the middle of a big group for maximum AoE. This one's bounce. Basically, it bounces off lots of ships. I've seen it hit for up to 50k per ship, but for such a long recharge, I would take it off if I ain't got anything better. Quantum singularity gives you a perfect cloak for a few seconds. Again, enough time to get out of trouble, but bear in mind that if a torpedo has targeted you and your cloak, it'll still find you. How it does it, I don't know, but I guess Cryptic never thought to program that in. When we look at the reputations, I tend to go for Temporal Operative because of continuity, which is this skill here. When reduced to 10% of your hull, you will be immediately removed from danger. Another get out of jail free card. The ship will teleport approximately 8 kilometers from its current location. Except if you've got threat on. If you're using threat, you won't teleport. It'll just basically give you about half of your hull back. But very, very useful to use. Also, it's quite an effective specialization for dealing extra damage for any kind of exotic builds. Tropic Rider does a reasonable amount of physical damage every second, and most NPCs and other players don't have very high resistance against physical damage, so that's quite interesting. Used to be much better before they took a sledgehammer to the temporal skills. And then Strategist. I always use Strategist, so when I use my threat, I need to put that on there, threatening stance. Let's put threatening stance on. I don't seem to have enough room because these, oh wait, yeah, that's fine. That only that part of the tray is used on automatic there, so I've got threatening stance on there. So basically with diversionary tactics, which is this one here, I've got threatening stance on. It taunts all the foes, gets them to come and fire at you. It generates a lot more threat, 50% more threat. Also gives you a lot more healing when you've got threatening stance on. The reason we find it useful is that we are awarded in our own fleet's event system for any threat that we take. The more threat that we take, the higher the score we get, and that allows people to go in there with glass cannons and not take any threat at all, or not very much, and do all the damage while the big tanky cruisers can keep the threat on. And basically that's a good way of trying to get the Trinity back, certainly in terms of a big tank sucking up the damage, sucking up the threat, and the glass cannons whacking out the damage. and it doesn't work properly because Cryptic's threat system is pretty broken. No matter how many threat consoles you've got on, if you do enough damage, the NPC will ignore the person with all the threat and go for the one that's actually damaging them. There you go. So, I think that's about it. Let's see if there's anything to show you on the duty officers. If you're not using Ox to Bat, which is a way of speeding up your bridge officer abilities at the cost of Ox power and one or two other things, one of the DOffs I like to use are the energy weapons officers, these, and you can stack 3 of them. Basically, chance to reduce the time for any beam special attack, 50% chance reduce remaining recharge time by 10 seconds. So if you stack 2 of them on, you get 2 50% chances. That doesn't mean 100%. That just means it's a 50% chance. Oh, that didn't work on that DOff. 50% chance did work on that DOff. So it probably will reduce it, but not necessarily. Let's just see. Yeah, it did. It went from 30 straight down to 20 seconds from how far it will. Law is similar for recharging torpedoes. Shield distribution officer, when damaged, 10% chance you get a shield heal. It's not brilliant, it does the job. A nurse increases hull regen. So I've only banged this together just before I started doing this live stream, and we'll see how it actually performs. We can actually try that now, see how she does. What I'll do is I'll just start up my combat log. And we'll see how it goes. Yes, the log's getting rather large. A real-time parser up there, so I can see it as we're actually running. Probably going to do a Tholin red alert and see how it stacks up. So let's queue for that. It's joined the queue. Okay, first time in action. Normally I'd go straight over to the big tarantulas, but I don't think it's a good idea in this ship. But we'll see how it goes. Let's activate the Jevonite, activate the threat, activate attract fire. No, I think I'll use system weapons efficiency. Let's see how it does. I hope it dies so fast. We ended up with the big ones after all, didn't we? She's going to fire its web cannon. Don't want to be too close to it when it does that. So far, even though I've got a threat on and it is targeting me, look, it's withstanding it quite well. Fortunately for once, we've got some people in here that are doing reasonable damage. There goes that heavy trike. Let's see what it does for that. And it blew up. Is it gonna? Yeah, it's gonna go down to that orb weaver. See what it hits it for. Let's go. Ah, that's the problem. These things blow up before they reach the targets. Yeah. So as I was saying, let me just go back to that. How did we do in that Tholin red alert? Not bad at all, really. Let's get back to the main screen. There it is. 23,000 DPS. Not bad for a tier 3 ship. I wasn't getting much chance to target things. They were dying before I really had a chance to get stuck into them. So on the more difficult missions, that wouldn't be the case. Got a reasonable threat there, 29%. Good healing, highest healing. And I think for a tier 3 ship, that's quite acceptable. Crit rate around about 18 to 20%, something like that for the beams. Quite reasonable. So all in all, a good start to the tier challenge week on SRS, which is this. So if you are in SRS watching this, that's what we're doing this week. Use a lower tier ship to get a boost to your mission replay points, and also you are allowed some deaths. So if you get in this ship, which is tier 3, I'll be allowed to die twice without being penalised, and I'll get a nice 60% boost. There's no way I'm going to try a tier 1 ship. Or maybe one day I'll try it, but not seriously. We'll see how we go with this tier 3 ship. But it's a nice little ship, and I'm really pleased with that. So that's the end of this live stream. If you've got any questions, go onto our Facebook group, which is here. Go on to SRS Command, Facebook/group/SRS Command, and post in there, or send a mail from our website, which is srs-fleet.net. And thanks for watching, and we'll be back on with the live stream at around about 8 PM this evening, which is about 3.5 hours from now, where there'll be a lot more people online with us, and we'll be seeing just how well this ship performs when it's up against some real enemies. Okay, thanks for watching.